In a foreign affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, good to see you. We have effectively phase one of the deal completed. We saw the hostage release yesterday, as well as the Palestinian detainees. What comes next now?
Yeah. Well, if you're Donald Trump, and these were his own words, what comes next is lots of cash, unlimited cash. Those were his words yesterday at this summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, and he said them while pointing at one official from the United Arab Emirates. And what he meant by lots of cash, unlimited cash, is his vision of rebuilding Gaza, if you would, in his own image, in a sense. He sees it, and not because I'm saying he sees it this way, because he himself posted a video showing his vision of a reconstructed Gaza full of hotels and entertainment centers and a shining city, if you will, on the Mediterranean, fit for all Gazans, presumably, because the plans to sort of deport them all somewhere else, to expel them from Gaza, no longer seem to be explicitly on the table. There is at least some hint of wanting to build some sort of future for them. That said, Donald Trump, what comes next is we don't know, in a nutshell, because Donald Trump yesterday, and while, yes, it was a day of absolute joy and celebration, and yes, it was a momentous landmark watershed event to finally see those hostages released, to see the swap with the Palestinian prisoners. Those images yesterday were historic moments, more than just symbolic, historic moments. But that said, when you say what comes next right now, Donald Trump never once really mentioned the future for the Palestinians, the future, their future. He never really talked about what comes next in terms of what phase two is really supposed to be about, which is security measures and demilitarization, namely getting Hamas to lay down its guns. I know we keep repeating these points again and again, but the reason they bear reiteration and repeating is because these are not minor details. These are things which need to be sort of etched in stone because they're extremely difficult, more than simply stumbling blocks. Whether or not Hamas lays down its arms, lays down its weapons, whether or not the Israeli troops don't just withdraw to a preliminary sort of withdrawal line within Gaza, but actually withdraw from Gaza itself, whether these things fall into place, whether we have a future governance of Gaza, whether or not we're able to set up the so-called international stabilization force, which would presumably involve, according to the 20-point plan, U.S., Arab and European, forces in some way on the ground, but not U.S. troops in Gaza in any way. Whether that all comes together are giant questions. And you can think back to Oslo, the Oslo Accords years ago. It seems like ancient history now, right? It was only 32 years ago, the 93 Oslo Accords. They were a giant watershed moment, but one significant thing very much resembles this. The Oslo Accords deliberately, intentionally punted the big, hard questions on the return of refugees and borders to a later date. What would be the capital of a future potential Palestinian state? All of that was punted down the road. They recognize it. Similar here, except yesterday was putting the cart before the horse. Donald Trump talked as if the deal is done, the T's have been crossed, and the I's have been dotted, when we're really just beginning. What comes next is what's beginning today.
Doug, yesterday you and I sat through Donald Trump's address to the Israeli Knesset, and he was applauded for a vast majority of his speech, but some parts a little less applause, especially when he spoke about expanding the Abraham Accords to even potentially including Iran. Is he, in this instance, putting the cart before the horse?
Donald Trump, he's given a script for these speeches, but as you know, his signature style, and this is what he most enjoys, his so-called weave, he veers off of script. And a lot of what he said yesterday, not all of it obviously, was veering off script. And I would say that perhaps the Iran moment was one where he took some liberties to sort of throw out there to a very lukewarm, tepid reception among the Israeli lawmakers. Let's remember that Knesset was sort of packed with Likud activists from Benjamin Netanyahu's party, for whom Iran has been the absolute arch nemesis of the region, if not of the world, for Israel. So a very tepid reception, but he's throwing it out there. Trump will say something, and by saying it and repeating it enough, it becomes part of the discourse and the sort of the mainstream thinking. Before you know it, you blink and you say, all of a sudden everyone's talking about, well, let's start talking to Iran. But yeah, that doesn't look likely to get a good reception among the Israelis, nor does his proposal to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu, which he said, turning to the Israeli president, said, why don't you pardon the guy? These are all, some would say that is hubristic meddling in the affairs, the judicial affairs of a foreign state. while speaking to a foreign assembly.
Given that outside, most of the people who gathered at Hostage Square were
We're
kind of
booing that. They're
Netanyahu.
very hostile to that idea.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for that, Douglas Herbert there.